Good morning. We begin our program with CT Insider's Dan Haar, who's joining us to talk about some of the new laws to come out of the 2024 legislative session that wrapped up last week, along with some interesting developments out of the state political conventions. Welcome.
Okay, great to be here.
Let's not start with what came out of the legislative session, but maybe with what didn't, because the climate change bill was watched so closely and it ended with a wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah. Yeah. That's right. Well, it did pass in the House, and the Senate in the waning hours didn't take it up, not because they ran out of time. Don't believe that. They had time to pass it. In fact, the Senate passed a bill that was going nowhere because the governor was going to veto it, and they did that with two bills, AI and that. So a lot of politicking. The long and the short of it is there wasn't support, as you know, and as we've discussed on this very air, there is a rift in the Democratic Party. They don't like to use that word, but there is a rift between the climate support folks and the liberals in other areas, chiefly economic progressive economic ideas. It didn't pass. It just didn't. The Senate just didn't bring it up. This is the bill that was already watered down that would have created incentives for all kinds of clean energy, heat exchangers, and of course, wind and solar.
And, of course, electric vehicles was the big talking point leading into this, and that kind of led to this watered-down bill, and still not enough room for compromise.
That was so dead, I forgot about it just now. That was the electric vehicle, right. What we thought was going to be over the winter before the session started, a change in the regulations that simply, oh, let's get this done, that Connecticut, but that, of course, collapsed nationally.
The other thing that we talked about when we had the speaker on, he talked about it, the possibility of reopening the budget. They did not, but they found some money to spend.
In the winners and losers category, a balanced budget for this coming year is a winner. A balanced budget for 25-26, that is the budget that is coming up in only 8 months, right? Or 7, is it 8 months, right? When the governor proposes a budget next winter, it's going to be tough, because if they're spending $400 million now, I don't want to go into the whole guardrail thing, but if they're spending money now that's one-time money that UConn, which is getting, $100 million of it, and CSCU is getting, those are winners this year, where are they going to get it next year?
So more fights on that ahead. Housing was another big topic. Anything big come out of there?
Yes, housing is a mixed picture. Some housing advocates are very disappointed. You have to divide housing into two areas. One is tenant protections, and those largely lost. There were 3 or 4 very big tenant protections, the biggest of which we've talked about, is the what they were calling just cause eviction, right, and which I call just cause chaos, because you can't give somebody an automatic renewal of their lease. It doesn't work if the burden of proof is on you that they shouldn't get the lease. So that didn't pass. Another one that was a look back into criminal records didn't pass. But what did pass, a little thing, 45-day notice on rent increases, which is absolutely valid and should happen. Also some housing incentives, but not as much as the advocates wanted. This was not a year when we were going to get a big housing reform. Even the little housing reforms got attacked and came out less.
All right. It's a couple of worker things, striking workers and sick days.
Striking workers was the bill. That was the ridiculous bill. Is that word? I can, yeah.
Listen, you're a columnist. You can say anything you want.
You're right. Well, the idea was that you should give strike pay to the state, should allow striking workers to get unemployment. It's not giving state money. It's unemployment, which is not state money. It's an unemployment insurance fund, which employers pay into.
Right.
And that's state policy. This is not such a bad idea. I know that the right was saying, oh, this is crazy, you're tipping the scales, but there are reasons to do it. It didn't have enough votes to pass, and so they created this $3 million fund for low-income workers, which Controller Sean Scanlon was going to administer in some way. And the governor rightly said, I don't think so. I'm not going to just give you a slush fund. That's not a plan. He says, if you want to vote for it, and I'll decide on it. And it would be a tough decision for him. But that's where that goes. And the other one was paid sick days. Absolutely, that was a pretty good reform, and it's a big win for labor. And that it moves from 50 employees down eventually by 2027 to 1 employee. You are entitled to 5 days, 40 hours of sick pay if you're a full-time employee.
Let's move on to politics, because I don't want to run out of time. Tell me about the Republican convention first. There was hope that there might be a clear choice to go up against Murphy, but it didn't happen that way.
So that Jerry Smith, the very well-liked first selectman, or is he mayor, of Beacon Falls, was going to challenge Murphy in some way with his $100,000 versus Murphy's $9 million. This is a fight to see who goes down with 38%. And Murphy was the preferred candidate by many delegates, but
Smith, you mean? You said Murphy. Murphy's
okay,
the guy
yes,
they're facing.
Jerry Smith was the preferred candidate, right? And Matthew Corey, who ran 6 years ago against, there he is, who ran against Murphy 6 years ago and ran a credible campaign for a guy who only spent $175,000, came in presumably slightly more from the right. It's really not so much an ideological rift as it a personality thing, but sure, they're going to have a primary, great.
And on the Democratic side, Murphy is there, and they're all kumbaya and they love each other.
The kumbaya in the Democratic Party acclaim for this national figure, Chris Murphy, who is truly a national figure on 3 areas, foreign policy, immigration, and gun control, hides what could emerge next year as some rifts in the Democratic Party over the things we've talked about, housing, climate, and personality as well.
Only about 30 seconds left, but Leora Levy, she was a candidate last time around. Will she play a role in this next election cycle?
She may be behind Matthew Corey, I believe. I'm not certain of that because I wasn't there, but she's in that faction of the party. But more to the point, she's facing a challenge for her own Republican National Committee seat. She's paying a lot of attention to the national scene, not so much to Connecticut. And Connecticut's got a former vice chair of the party who's a registrar running against her. And
that's a big deal in shaping policy and things like that, even from a blue state, to have that seat on the National Committee.
Yeah, that's right. Some people want to see some new blood and somebody more attuned to Connecticut politics.
Dan Haar, CT Insider, thank you for being with us. Once again, we've run the marathon and a sprint at the same time. All the topics covered. I appreciate it.
It's the 400.
There it is.